What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today they have finally released the official patch notes for Diablo 4 Season 2, Season of Blood. And man, there is a ton of really great changes coming to the game. I am so excited for Season 2. I cannot wait to get my hands on it on October 17th, but this is not what this video is about. This video is going to be about the Druid class and all the changes coming to the Druid class and my perspective on how I think it will change the way we play our Druids. Because I made a Druid. If you're watching this video, you probably plan on rolling a Druid. Good for you, the best class in the game. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And I figured I'd like to start out with these two specific, really important things here for the start of this video, because a lot of you guys don't stick around too long, but hopefully that'll change as I get more and more popular and I get better at making these videos. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Legendary aspects right here under the Druid changes. And we're just going to read right into it. Legendary aspects. Aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast critical strike damage bonus amount now has a maximum of 200%. So no longer will this aspect scale critical strike damage infinitely to the point where you're dealing so much damage that you're wiping monsters off the screen before they even have a chance to move. Now, that doesn't mean that builds utilizing Rampaging Werebeast will not be viable going into Season 2, because if you watch the dev stream or you read these patch notes, you'll know that they're rebalancing the game overall to make up for a lot of the changes that they're bringing to the game in terms of balancing. So I do think that that builds utilizing Rampaging Werebeast will still be viable. However, you just won't be seeing those massive damage numbers. So be aware of that when you're going into Season 2. And the last, but certainly not least, and I am very excited for this change because I just don't like seeing this being a build for the Druid class. Fixed an issue where the innate Earthen Bulwark scaled with target's health instead of the player's weapon. The debate is over, guys. It wasn't intended, and I really did not like seeing these builds. So I'm happy that this has been fixed. The Earthen Bulwark passive, the innate Earthen Bulwark passive, was doing an insane amount of damage. I would even go so far as to say it was game breaking, because you would basically skip every mechanic of every boss, every single aspect of every dungeon. You could just run through the entire thing, spam your basic attack, and cast Earthen Bulwark over and over again, and it would just obliterate everything. So I'm very glad that they fixed that. I'm happy that they're bringing more build viability. I have no clue how people would find this build fun, other than the fact that it just lets you complete all the content without actually engaging with it. So I'm happy that they're fixing it. I'm happy we're going to have some really good build viability. And I'm also happy that they could potentially make a really solid skill here outside of just providing you Fortify, because they made a lot of really cool changes to Fortify now that it's scaling off of your max life instead of base life. So I think that now we're going to actually be able to use innate Earthen Bulwark to gain some damage without breaking the game entirely. So pretty happy with this change. I'm glad to see that stuff go out, because I think it was really bad for the class overall and really bad for the game. I don't think it was very useful. But anyway, now you guys can leave. I'm off my soapbox. Go ahead, ditch the video if you want to. For those who don't want to, please stick around. We're going to be talking about all the different Druid things. Going back to the top here, starting off with the unique items, we're going to be talking about Dolmen's Stone. And if you watch the dev video, you'll know they highlighted Dolmen's Stone in the video. And this is a Druid Amulet unique. So really cool that we're getting an Amulet unique here. And it says, casting Boulder while Hurricane is active will cause your boulders to rotate around you. Now, if you didn't see it in the video, it works like this. You cast, it's pretty much exactly how it's explained. You cast Hurricane. Obviously, Hurricane is a traveling AoE that circles your character. And then you throw out your boulder. And your boulder, instead of rolling to its final destination, it will get caught in your Hurricane, encircling your player character and damaging enemies around you. And you can cast more than one boulder into the Hurricane, and it will continue to collect up your boulders and circle around your character. And they've made a lot of good bug fixes to Boulder. So honestly, this unique is looking really promising. Not only does it look really cool, but giving us another option, another build we can another unique we can build around is pretty awesome. And I'm excited to get my hands on this unique. I definitely want to give it a try. Although I did notice that in order to target farm this specific unique, you're going to have to kill Uber Duriel. So it is not going to be one you get your hands on easily unless you're lucky. So be looking out for this unique. It sounds like a lot of fun. Then legendary aspects, there is one generic mobility aspect here. It gives you mobility, gives you a little bit of movement speed, 20% movement speed, but you do lose it if you take damage. So this is a pretty big negative here. I really don't like to equip things that you end up losing. I'd rather just have a flat movement speed bonus than have it be lost by taking damage. So probably won't be one I see a lot of people using, but it's going to be there. And then for the Druid specific aspect here. So the Druid specific is Raw Might aspect. And what this aspect does is after you hit 15 enemies with your werebear skills, your next werebear skill will deal 30 to 50% multiplicative damage, X more damage, and stun enemies for 2 seconds. So off the top of my head, I would say this is probably, generally speaking, more for dungeon clearing. Although the 15 enemies does sound kind of lackluster, I wish it wasn't so many, maybe like 5 or 10, but 15 is pretty excessive. And the fact that it's a one-time use and then 15 more enemies, it does seem like it's going to be... It seems like you would probably use this in a flex spot if you use it at all, or, you know, just if you overall like the aspect. But I don't think it's going to be useful too much, you know, but again, we haven't played the season yet, so... Then going down, there are some changes here to minions and companions. Now all minions will only take up to 30% of their max life in a single hit as damage. I do not think this will make Druid companions viable. In fact, all the changes that have been listed, I don't foresee Druid companions really moving up in ranks in terms of build viability. However, I do think if you plan on playing a companion build, it will be much more viable than in Season 1 with the rebalancing of the game overall. So I do expect that you will find that companion builds will function better, but I don't think that they will move up in terms of, you know, tier when compared to other Druid builds. So I firmly believe they'll still be bottom tier for Druid builds, but they will play and feel a little bit better. So the Druid uniques. Now we know every unique was getting overhauled, but... well, not every unique, but most every unique was getting overhauled. And as you can see here, there is no Crone Staff because that's a really great unique already. So let's go ahead and start off at the top here. Mad Wolf's Glee. Poison damage affix replaced with damage at 140% of normal value. That sounds pretty good. And physical damage affix replaced with bonus max life. So overall, some pretty nice changes to Mad Wolf's Glee. However, if you weren't using this unique before, you probably won't be using it now. So that's where I sit with this change. It's okay, not anything to make it a specific part of your build. Insatiable Fury, overpowered damage affix increased by 100%, total armor while in werebear form affix increased by 180%. So much better than, in my opinion, Mad Wolf's Glee. Overpowered damage is getting buffed up a bit. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but you'll have to try it when you get a hold of Season 2. So I think this is going to be pretty decent. Overpowered damage increasing by 100%. And then the overall armor increase is nice. Now, you do have to take into account the fact that they changed armor to only protect against physical damage, and resistances will now be your only source of reduction in terms of elemental damage. So that armor increase is warranted, so that way you can probably use some affixes on other pieces to increase your resistances. So I think this is a pretty nice buff overall to the item. I think the defensive capabilities of this item were pretty nice, and adding some more overpower damage. If you use this item, you'll still keep using it, and if you didn't, you might actually try it out. Then Stormwolf Companion Pants. My God, I really wanted to love this unique when I first got it. Ranks of Wolves affix increased by 66%. So this is pretty good because they did say they're going to be improving the leveling of your skills to make it more worthwhile to actually put points into your skills. So this actually might be nice, and you might actually be looking for those levels into specific skills for your builds more often now. And then companion skill damage affix replaced with bonus max life, and potion drop rate affix replaced with damage reduction. Now, this is really nice because that's a big part of the pants that made these pants so bad, is the affixes were so bad and you needed those defensive affixes. So now you get some damage reduction and max life. However, I wish they would have just taken the companion movement speed instead of the companion skill damage, because the companion movement speed is absolutely useless. Also, for companions, I wish they would take away this specific part right here. Companion damage should be what this is, not companion skill damage. We need companion passive damage and skill damage to scale with that affix in order for us to really want it on our gear. I'm not sure why they didn't make that change. And, you know, honestly, that's one of the biggest issues with companions overall, is that their damage doesn't really scale with anything that we utilize on our builds that may be like elemental damage. And that's a lot of what the Druid does, no matter whether you're picking a werewolf build, a werebear build, or you're not, or you're just utilizing one of the other two ultimates, because one is a lightning skill and one is an earth skill. So you obviously go with one element or the other when you're playing your druid, and unfortunately your companions don't really do that. And Storm Companion Pants actually change your werewolf to a storm skill, but Tempest Roar, which changes your storm skills to werewolf skills, doesn't affect these companion pants. So if you're running a direwolf build, which is what I was trying to do, and utilize companions in a meaningful way, doesn't work, unfortunately. Hopefully they change that in the future, but as it stands, I don't think this is going to be a big enough change to make these pants viable. And also the Storm Howl passive is pretty terrible as well. So that's my soapbox. Now I'm getting off of it. Let's talk about Flesh Render. This was the new unique they put in the game in Season 1, and it says their damage while shapeshifted affix increased by 100%, so really good. Damage while healthy affix replaced with core skill damage, another good change. The damage dealt to poison enemies from debilitating roar and blood howl is now increased by X 10% for each 100 willpower you have. So I'm going to assume what that means is if you have 700 willpower, it's going to be increased by 7 times 10%, so 70%, if that's how it works. So hopefully, I didn't really use this anyway, but hopefully it's decent enough that someone will use it. It sounds like they made a lot of significant changes, so. But this is the best one I've seen here. So I hated getting Hunter Zenith rings, and now I actually might like getting them. So damage while shapeshifted affix increased by 60%. Sounds really good. Bonus ranks of the quick shift passive affix increased by 200%. Another great change. This is the big one. Critical strike damage while werewolf skill affix replaced with critical strike chance. That's really good. So I didn't really care too much about these werebear, werewolf 2 affixes on the gear. And honestly, and then overpowered damage with bear skill affix replaced with bonus ranks of the Hythen Sense passive. So another way of getting some damage reduction here for whether you're in werebear or werewolf form, and a great way of giving you some extra damage with critical strike chance. So this ring is infinitely better. I think it will be much more viable for your builds, and you might actually utilize it if you're running a werebear or a werewolf build. Before, you would just can it because it was terrible. And then skills, Fierce Earth Spike, and this is going to be a lot of skills. Fierce Earth Spike, fortify amount changed from being based on base life to max life. This is a big change, a big difference. It's going to be a nice quality of life change for all Druid builds and any builds that really utilize Fortify, because they made Fortify actually be based off your maximum life. So another good reason to stack some life, and you actually get a benefit from it. So that's a great change, and you'll see that a lot. Enhanced Maul, same thing. Fortify now off of max life instead of base life. Ravens, still absolutely garbage. I do not think anyone should use this passive unless you're utilizing it for the 8% critical strike chance here. Passive damage increase from 0.2 to 0.24. Active damage increase from 1.6 to 2.5. Honestly, The AoE from the active skill is so small and it doesn't move. It's terrible. It needs to change. The passive damage doesn't scale well off of your damage modifiers. So I would say until they overhaul the entire companion system, if you're looking for a decent build, it's not going to be companions. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be good builds that you can use that are fun, because companions are fun to have. But if you're looking for a mid-tier to high-tier build, it's not going to be companions. My opinion might be changed into the season, but from what I see here, I do not see companions being that much different in terms of where they rank with other Druid builds. The 8% crit chance is nice, but again, it's a whole skill slot for an 8% critical strike increase. Not that big of a deal. Then rabies, damage increase from 1.1 to 1.4, spread speed increased by 50%, and they changed natural rabies to reduced it from 100% spread speed to 50%. They should have just added spread speed and removed this entirely and made this a different passive. Nerfing this was pointless. I mean, they should have just changed it entirely. And this is actually a nice change to rabies. They just need to change this passive, and then it'll be really good. And then preserving Earth and Bulwark again, instead of base life, max life, or fortify. Enhanced debilitating roar, base life, max life, or fortify. Furiosus, Wolfpack, base life, max life. Trample, knockback distance reduced by 10%. Okay. Trample, natural trample, fortify, base life to max life. Supreme Grizzly Rage, fortify, base life to max life. So you see, really nice change here. We're going to be able to build up fortify much, much easier, much more consistently. Then passives. Ancestral Fortitude, you gain 5, 10, 15% resistance to all elements. That is a great, great passive now. We're pretty much going to be a go-to passive for the Druid. We're going to have lots of good armor and lots of good resistances. So we have a pretty good class here. Charged Atmosphere, interval for lightning bolts reduced from 18, 15, 12 to 14, 11, 8. Pretty useless passive overall. I don't think this changes my mind on it. I think they need to rework this passive. It's awful. Electric Shock, lucky hit, chance to immobilize increased by 5, 10, 15% to 8, 16, 24%. Bonus damage to immobilized enemies increased from 6, 12, 18% to 7, 14, 21%. Pretty nice buff here. However, I will say with Lucky Hit, my big problem with Lucky Hit is that it doesn't scale additively like Critical Strike chance. So I would really like for Lucky Hit, if they took Lucky Hit off of all the skills and just gave us a base 5% or whatever chance to Lucky Hit, and then additive with our affixes. So what we would get is basically like we would do with Critical Strike. We have a base percent chance to crit strike, and then our gear is additive towards that crit strike chance. So if you have 5% base and then you get 10% from your gear, you now have 15% chance to crit. I wish they would do the same for Lucky Hit, where you have 5% chance to Lucky Hit, you get 10% from your gear, now you have a 15% chance to Lucky Hit with your skills. It would make Lucky Hit so much simpler, and honestly, I feel like a lot of these Lucky Hit abilities, a lot of these Lucky Hit passives would be much more valuable because they would be much more dependable. As it stands, a lot of these skills have just arbitrary values assigned to them in terms of Lucky Hit, and some of them are rather low. Like Lightning Strike is really, really low at like 12%. It's pretty bad. So when you stack Lucky Hit chance, it doesn't really affect it too much. So I definitely would like them to rework Lucky Hit chance, but overall a decent change to the passive. But I feel like Lucky Hit chance needs to change. Then Safeguard, again, Fortify, Base Life, Max Life, Thick Hide, Nature's Resolve, Natural Fortitude, all Base Life to Max Life. Then Nature's Fury, casting an Earth skill has a 30% chance to trigger a free Storm skill of the same category, and vice versa. These free skills count as both Earth and Storm skills. Now, it sounds like they didn't really change it too much, but I don't think this is part of it. These free skills count as both Earth and Storm skills. So I think for the sake of Nature's Fury passive, you may be able to increase the damage of these free skills just based off of whatever damage modifiers you're using, whether it be increased lightning damage or increased earth damage. I think it will actually affect the free skills, so that makes it just that much better. So now if you're casting a boulder and you get a lightning skill or you get a hurricane, you're still going to get that nice damage output from your passives for your earth damage. That's what it sounds like to me. So a nice buff again to Nature's Fury. It was already a great passive. Now it's made even better. Earth Sign Strength, while healthy, deal 25% multiplicative damage, X increased damage, and 25% X increased overpower damage. That sounds really great, especially because you get that nice tankiness from Earth and Strength. A nice Earth Sign Strength. So you're going to have a pretty nice buff here in terms of your damage output with Earth Sign Strength. Then Lupine Ferocity, the guaranteed critical strike bonus damage is increased to 140% against injured enemies. I don't think this is that big of a deal. If you weren't using this, you weren't before, you're not going to use it now. 140% is not that big of a deal when you have an injured enemy. This might be okay. I don't even know. I still think it's bad. There's just too many better options out there, in my opinion. Legendary aspects, and we went over this, now capped at 200%. Rampaging Werebeast, fixed. Paragon, Earth and Devastation. Previous, your Earth skills deal 30% X increased damage to enemies afflicted by crowd control. The new one is Earth skills deal 10% increased critical strike damage. Really good change for bosses. So now this is viable for bosses. Increased by 25% X of your total amount of your bonus damage to crowd controlled up to 40%. So really nice change here. This not only makes it better for bossing, but also better for clearing mob packs in dungeons. So a really great change here for the Earth and Devastation. And again, the new unique Dolmen, the Dolmen unique with Hurricane and the Nature's Fury change and the boulder being fixed. Oh my goodness, it sounds like they're kind of pushing you. They're pushing you in that direction. They want you to use that. So nice changes here. And then Thunderstruck. Previous storm skills deal 30% X increased critical strike damage against vulnerable or immobilized enemies. Pretty decent. The new one is storm skills deal bonus damage equal to 50% X of the total amount of your damage to close and damage to distant bonuses. So it sounds like it could potentially be a pretty decent buff. 30% increased damage, increased critical strike damage against vulnerable or immobilized enemies. I don't know. I honestly think you'd have to play with this in order to actually say if it's a buff, a nerf, or a wash. Because if you don't stack a lot of close damage to close or damage to distant bonuses here, damage to distant enemies, you're not really going to get a lot out of this. But if you do stack a lot of damage to close and damage to distant bonus, to enemies, you're going to get a quite a hefty damage boost to this. So I think it's one of those passives that you're going to have to really build specifically for it. You're going to have to be looking for damage to close enemies and damage to distant enemies on your gear pieces. I don't know if it would be worth the headache, but you'll have to test it out. I think that's pretty cool. You're going to have to test that out. It sounds like it could be really good. Or it could just be a wash, or it could be an overall nerf. Who knows? I think that's pretty cool. But anyway, that's it for the video, guys. We went over the big deal with the bug fixes. There are a lot of nice bug fixes here. It's mainly improving a lot of different little aspects. Nothing too crazy. The big one was fixing innate Earth and Bulwark. Thank you, Jesus. But who knows? We'll see what the game has for us. Season's coming soon, October 17th. I'm super excited for Season 2. I hope you guys are super excited for Season 2. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments section. Let me know your opinions. What do you think about these changes? Are you excited to play your Druid again? Are you excited to level to 100 now that it's going to be way more easier? Are you excited for those in-game bosses? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. But anyway, with all that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day or night, depending on where you're from, and peace out. I will see you in the next one.